all, it means,
Forgot to do that. Sorry.
okay, yeah.
People who can't be here.
Okay, so what this means, what this notion of non-theism means, and again, well, I'll come back to that in a minute. What this means, first of all, is that we already have within us what we need. We may not recognize this, we might lack confidence in this, but it's one of the experiences of the Buddha, and again, the many, many teachers who follow from the Buddha to the present day, that we already have what we need in ourselves. What we need to do is uncover that, work with that, cultivate that. It also means that there's nothing lacking. There's nothing that we don't have that we need from some external source that we are lacking or somehow doing without. It also means that ultimately nothing else is going to save us, that it's through our effort, our practice, our study, that we're going to be able to recognize and realize this truth. So as he says, it's a total commitment to oneself. Ultimately, that's what we're doing. A total commitment to oneself, not in the sense of ego, but in the sense of our potential to wake up, our potential to wake up to our own awareness, to wake up to our capacity to be caring and compassionate to others, our ability to make friends with ourselves, which comes about, again, through our study and practice, but in particular our practice, just learning to simply be with ourselves in meditation practice, just as we are, and then to open from there. So again, in the chapter that we read from Heart of the Buddha, he talks about the refuge vow in terms of taking refuge in the Buddha as example, the Dharma as path, and the Sangha as community or companionship. And so all of those are concepts. What's important is that we come to understand them as experiences. That one of the criticisms or problems, I guess is probably a better word to say, with conceptual mind, is that we tend to mistake concept for experience. And what's important in working with the teachings, contemplating the teachings, is understanding that the concepts point us in a certain direction. But what we're meant to do is understand, come to understand something about what each one of these things means, understand something about how we might experience these. So to begin with the Buddha as example, he says that the Buddha realized that there is no reason we should believe in or expect anything greater than the basic inspiration that exists in us already. There's no reason we should believe in or expect anything greater than the basic inspiration that exists in us already. Which is another way of saying that we have what we need. We just need to uncover and work with that. And again, in the same way that through the understanding something of the life of the Buddha, which he explains pretty thoroughly in this chapter, that instead of looking for an outside situation to make us feel better, he began by working on himself. And in much the same way, that we can begin working on ourselves, that we can actually look within rather than seek constantly for something without, that perhaps gives them temporary relief, but ultimately leads to the false security that we talked about a moment ago. And so that's the example the Buddha gave us, that we have what we need already, that we can discover this by working on ourselves, by working with what we already have, what we already are, our fundamental awareness, the capacity to wake up, rather than looking constantly for something outside of us that we feel we're lacking, or that we feel we need to take in order to become whole. In terms of working with the Dharma as path, he says that taking refuge in the Dharma means relating to everything that happens as part of the natural process, so that we're excluding nothing in the path. And in particular, again, this begins in the Buddha's Hinayana teachings with relating with the truth of suffering, which doesn't mean that we should particularly wallow or encourage suffering. That's the other problem with conceptual mind, is a tendency to go from one extreme to another, but just means that we're open to whatever we're experiencing, that we don't shy away from anything, that we are capable of looking at experience and learning from it, growing from it, rather than feeling we need to hide in some way. And that secondly, he says that taking refuge in the Dharma means that experiences that go through our life, pain and pleasure alike, are also sacred teachings. And then finally, whatever goes on or in our mind is a learning situation. And this is the path. This is the path of Dharma, that we can learn from whatever we experience and that we don't need to shy away from anything. So the third thing that we're taking refuge in is the Sangha, community, companionship. And for that, I think we don't really need to talk about it. I think when we can experience that here and now, which is why I really do encourage people to share whatever questions we might have, whatever inspirations we might have, whatever hesitations we might have. And in that way, offer to each other exactly what it means to take refuge in Sangha as companionship and community. So that's what I came prepared to say. Congratulations to everyone on even considering taking refuge. It's a really important step. It's a really important commitment. And again, ultimately, the purpose in taking refuge is committing ourselves to freedom. Thank you.
So we could have a discussion. What's been going through my mind is Janis Joplin singing "Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose," which is kind of a negative way of putting the truth, which is that, yeah, what do you got? What do you have there?
A Janis Joplin t-shirt.
It's the right thing to wear.
Really? Yeah, because what we're giving up is our feeling of poverty, and of that we have to make things better all the time. That's what enslaves us, which is quite a profound and powerful undertaking.
Silvio?
Yeah, there was an interesting book title. I forgot who wrote it. Everything is the way. I thought that was very interesting and kind of fits in with what you said about a commitment to freedom. So the way is what's happening always in front of us, and it's there to teach us something. Very beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I thought this chapter was so profound. I mean, the beginning of the path, it's really.
I'll chime in. I have not read the chapter, and if someone could send it to me, I would appreciate it, because I love Trungpa's writings. I am renewing my refuge vows. I took them more than 20 years ago. And it's just, for me now, is just a natural way of being. And it's about, for me, it's living consciously and intentionally as best as I can. I find it interesting and pleasant, more or less, of course, but just that it's just a nice way to live. And I'm looking forward to renewing my vows as well.
Yeah. Here's a quote. You experience a sense of loneliness, aloneness, a sense that there is no savior, no help. But at the same time, there is a sense of belonging. You belong to a tradition of loneliness where people work together. That's the definition of our Sangha. Loneliness together. Dave.
John, the word loneliness caught me off guard when I read through this. I was wondering if perhaps another word, maybe not as more fitting, but that it's not so much loneliness, which can be sort of a negative feeling, but that it's he's also talking about warriorship here, right? He's about standing on your own 2 feet, not relying on others to hold you up or invisible forces. Is that what he means by loneliness? It still sort of feels a little strange to me.
Yeah, I think if you know anything about the samurai tradition, that sense of aloneness, not relying on others, of just complete integrity. Yeah. Yes, darling. Did you have your hand up? And then Karen Sue?
I'm saying goodbye to my child, so I'm finally alone. So the ride was about an hour late. So
okay. Karen Sue, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to share, and Dave, I'm really glad that you brought up that that word loneliness. And John, you read exactly the sentence that very much speaks to me. And so for me, my loneliness is personal. It's mine. It's my loneliness. But with my Sangha, I'm never alone, because the Sangha experiences each individual loneliness, but we share in that loneliness, so I never feel alone. And it's quite a profound feeling.
Earlier, he said, the ceremony marks the beginning of an odyssey of loneliness. And I think what comes to mind is when he was teaching, America was in the throes of all kinds of things regarding the youth generation, anti-Vietnam, changes in values, hippie culture, and also Eastern religions. And a lot of people were looking for something to join, as though by joining some organization, whatever, the Satgurus or organization, or an anti-Vietnam organization, or whatever it might have been, we would achieve some kind of meaningfulness in our lives. And this stands in contrast to that by taking the refuge vow, you're not looking for comfort in an organization and belonging to some group, that one's giving that up. That kind of identity, gaining an identity from belonging. I'm a Republican, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Buddhist, whatever it may be, giving all that up and becoming sort of a citizen of the cosmos.
Miriam has her hand up.
Yes, I'm very excited about this, taking the vows, because I've been thinking about it for a year and a half. And when I was first introduced to the Sangha and listened to all the courses, and I thought it might be a good idea. That was the summer of 2021, but I hesitated because there were refuge vows being taken in the October of that year, and John announced it. And I thought, am I ready? Am I really ready to commit? And then I thought to myself, I don't need to rush into this, you know? To me, the commitment initially, the way I understood it, was around meditation daily, the practice. And I guess over the last year and a half, I've understood that it's the Sangha as well and the Dharma mean an awful lot. I'm understanding it better. I'm still here. So I feel very ready for this. And the loneliness question too, which puzzled me for a while. There's something really personal about this, this endeavor. It's very personal, and it's hard to share with the world. And it's certainly not a thing of identity either. So I think that's kind of what he meant by it. But it's not unhappy. It's scary sometimes, I think. But there's always a refuge in the Sangha. So anyway, I look forward to it.
Rain.
Oh, somehow you're muted. Rain, you're muted.
Hey, good morning.
There, good.
Okay. I'm a very old Buddhist. I took refuge in 1987. And right now I'm ready to receive refuge instead of taking it. So in those 40 years, a whole change of perspective took place through meditation and practice. So I'm happy to find you guys, but you're not so easy to find. So I don't know what to say else. I'm happy to join you, and I'm glad I met John Baker. That's all I want to say right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
I wasn't sure you were saying my name. Hi, everyone. I'm sort of in the middle of both of you guys that just spoke. I've been a practitioner for, I don't know, since the mid-90s. Every opportunity that came up to take my vows was thwarted by single parenthood, finances, geography. And all of a sudden this showed up, and not only do I not have to work, like everything that's involved in this is absolutely wide open. And I'm like, wow. So it must be time. And the other thing that's made this particularly poignant for me is I started out at Hartford Shambhala, and one of my first friends at Hartford Shambhala was Nancy Moore. Some of you may know her, Michael. I don't know Michael, and it was Nancy and her husband Bob. And Nancy, I got a call last week that she had passed away. So it's kind of bittersweet for me to have lost such an openly wonderful woman.
Nancy,
And
say the last name again, Catherine.
She was about 4 feet tall. Most people know her for that. She was part of Hartford Shambhala with Randy Kaplan and John Brahman. She was one of my first connections to Chogyam Trungpa. So it's, like I said, poignant. Happy to be with you all. Continue to commit and recommit to Dharma practice. And I'm really, yeah, grateful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, the last thing I made a note of in his comments on taking refuge in the Sangha. The Sangha is dedicated people who are working on themselves alone together. It is very real. Really beautiful. Anne.
Hi, everyone. I am really happy to see your faces and looking forward to taking the vow or renewing the vow with all of you next week. I'm deeply grateful that this opportunity exists. I've been involved with Shambhala since the mid-90s, much like Catherine. And because I usually worked 70 to 80-hour weeks and was taking care of an ill parent and raising 3 kids, and my husband mostly worked out of town and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I went in and out a little bit of my ability to practice and to study. But I'm deeply connected to the Buddha as an example, and feeling a little emotional here, sorry. And the Dharma as a path, and the Sangha. I live in Boulder. I'm very fortunate to have a strong Sangha that I can participate with in the Boulder community. I just want to say that I've deeply wanted to take refuge for a few years now, but haven't really had an opportunity because a lot of the refuge vows went away right when I became much more serious and much more involved in my practice. So I just can hardly wait for next week. I can hardly wait to make refuge. I feel I'm very committed already to my loneliness, which actually I find that term provocative more than anything else, because I think I've always been afraid of loneliness. And I appreciate the fact that it just kind of, just keep thinking of Ralph Waldo Emerson, I just kind of keep thinking that it just makes me self-reliant in ways that, with my practice, in ways that are refreshing, inspiring, and challenging. And I think that's everything that I want to say for right now, but I'm just really appreciative of being here and very inspired to take the refuge vow next week and to continue on the path with all of you.
Andrew.
This is really wonderful, and thank you, Anne. I also have a very similar story, and that's, I think, what's wonderful about Sangha is, I've been connected since the 90s as well, and also feel so appreciative that I found John in this group, because I've been wanting to take refuge for a number of years, but Shambhala, my Shambhala group hasn't offered it in years. But what's interesting for me is, I had an opportunity about 30 years ago, but was a young practitioner, and I think was still holding on to hope and fear and conditioned existence. And through my practice, I've realized that, awakened mind is unconditional, and that contentment only comes from unconditioned existence. And realizing that, I've had deep appreciation for the Buddha, and the Dharma, and the Sangha. And, connecting to the suffering of beings, I think reinforces this notion of being a refugee and giving up, giving up hope and fear, and seeing it clearly. And so, yeah, I'm just very excited. Everything seems very auspicious lately. I actually was listening to a lecture last night by the Regent, and I just kind of randomly will pick a lecture, and he was talking about the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and he was giving a talk to just a Dharma study group in Denver in 1983. So it was a small group, and it was wonderful. He talked about the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha as body, speech, and mind as, you know, the sky, this vastness, and the three kayas. And I thought, wow, this is like the perfect lecture before this class today. So very auspicious. And thank you, John. It's wonderful connecting with you and your group. So thank you.
I was looking at, again, another quote from that chapter. He says, we develop the sense that it is worthwhile to walk on this earth. Nothing is regarded as a waste of time. Nothing is seen as punishment or as a cause of resentment or complaint. Giving up blame and its corollary, resentment, we stop dividing the world into enemy and friend, good job and necessary evil. All of life is regarded as a fertile situation and a learning situation, always. I mean, this is so noble and beautiful. Hi. Yes, Barb.
Good to see you all. I think I'm a relative newbie compared to what I'm hearing from all of you, but so much of this path just makes sense to me from the beginning, from the first step, I should say. I think I've been on the loneliness path for a long time, so all of that just seemed logical to me. I've been practicing for just a few years and started on the path through Shambhala just a couple of years ago, so I'm very new with all of the teachings, but recently became a staff member at Drala Mountain Center, and so I'm very honored and fortunate to be kind of surrounded by these teachings in every aspect of my life. I've got a beautiful Sangha, and Anne and I are Sangha buddies, and I took on a meditation instructor not very long ago and began the conversation about the refuge vow, and things just kind of fell into place, as I find they do on the path. So I'm very excited to be here, and so ready to take the vow and make that commitment and stop shopping. I've been shopping for a long time. And I don't love to shop. So thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, doesn't he make that point really powerfully here, that taking refuge, we're giving up shopping for some panacea, something better, you know? Where, yeah. Anne, you had your hand up.
I gave up shopping, you know, in the mid-90s when I went to Naropa and learned about Shambhala. Just taken a long time for me to take refuge, I guess, because, and it's just, again, for many reasons, but the thing about ceremony, I made this commitment a long time ago, I guess I feel. But the thing about having the ceremony itself is so important. The rite of passage into this different aspect of commitment, I think is just so precious. And I'm just, again, really grateful that this is an opportunity that's available. So rite of passage, it makes a difference when you go through a ceremony, and it's going to make a difference. Even though I think I have full commitment, it'll make a difference in my commitment level. You know, it will. It'll deepen everything. So, yeah, thank you.
Karen Sue?
So I'm renewing my refuge vow. And so there's a quote on page 5 that says, when you become a refugee, a follower of Buddhist teachings, you get onto a train that is without reverse and is without brakes. The train comes along, pulls up to a certain station and a certain time. You get onto the train, and then the whistle toots and off you go. So I remember when I was, and this is really appropriate for me because I remember when I was considering the first time, and I was afraid. I had hesitation. I thought just what that sentence says. It has no brakes. It's going off, and here we go. And that scared me a little bit. I was a little frightened. And then after reading this chapter and talking with John, there all of a sudden became this, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to walk with, but there was, as I said, after talking with John and reading this chapter, there was the scales tipped more towards, yes, you should do this, even though you have a little, even though you're a little afraid. And I just wanted to share that because now where I am and coming back to this refuge vow is even more rewarding for me. So thank you all very much.
I remember a story. I'm going to tell stories. Back around early 70s, 1970s, Trungpa Rinpoche's closest student was an Englishman named Richard Arthur, whose refuge name was Kungadawa. And he was the first Westerner that Trungpa Rinpoche told to teach, as far as I know. Might have been somebody else, but he was here in this country. And Kunga, Richard, very close friend all his life, just died a couple of years ago. But back in the 70s, he was teaching in San Francisco, and he had what we called a psychotic break. He got stabbed in the leg because of some sexual thing. He ran down the street naked. He was really out of his mind. And Trungpa Rinpoche sent a couple of his stronger students, tougher students, to go get him and bring him back. And we did. And eventually he was committed to Boulder Psychiatric Institute. Later, shortly that summer, we had a seminar that Rinpoche was giving up. It was up in the mountains, off the Peak to Peak Highway, about 10,000 feet up. It was on death, but that doesn't really matter. But everybody was shocked, that this had happened to Kunga Richard. And one night we're sitting around the fire, and you could feel it. The people were still reeling from this happening. how could this have happened to what Rinpoche's closest student? You know? And finally, Rinpoche just laughed. Nobody said anything, but he knew it. And he laughed and he said, and he addressed it. And he said, everybody overestimates the importance of a guru. He said, I'm just a clerk, meaning clerk, the English word for clerk. He says, I sit in the booth and sell the tickets. You get on the train and take the trip. So, thought I'd share that. Yes, Anne?
I met Richard because I bought a Subaru at Flatiron Subaru here in Boulder, and he was the salesperson.
Right.
And then we wound up hanging for a time, but he never told me of his importance and that fact that he was his Trungpa Rinpoche's first student.
Oh, Richard was so important. Richard accompanied Rinpoche on his trip to Bhutan in 1968, where he did the retreat at Tagsang, Tiger's Nest, where Padmasambhava had meditated in the 8th century, and received the terma, the sadhana of Mahamudra. And then when we chant it today, the sadhana, that's a lot of Richard Arthur in that, because Rinpoche's English wasn't very good. Richard's Tibetan was non-existent, but they collaborated on that translation. And it has flaws. And then later, the Nalanda Translation Committee did a perfect, you might say, translation, an accurate one. But Rinpoche said he felt that the translation that he and Richard had done in 1968 together in that cave in Bhutan was terma as well. And so that's what we chant today. We chant that translation. And it has some oddities in it. So for instance, I know this has got to be Richard. There's a place where it talks about the Alaya Vijnana, which is the Alaya consciousness, the storehouse consciousness. It's where all your memories are stored in embryo, in kind of, they're until they're triggered one way or another, and they come conscious, the Alaya. It's the 8th consciousness. It's translated as the universal unconscious, which is a Jungian term, from Carl Jung, had to be Richard. But we still chant it that way. It's the universal unconscious. Yeah. And Richard is an example, too, of the fact that when you receive the refuge vow and you get a name, you can choose, if you wish, to use that name. And Richard basically did. We always called him Kunga. That's what he chose to go by, Kunga Dawa. But I mean, I'm sure he used his given name for some legal things, or maybe when he sold cars. See, what happened was that after that breakdown that he had, Rinpoche, he wasn't allowed to teach anymore. Eventually he did again, towards the end of his life. And we invited him to come and teach to us in New York. And he did. He taught about the sadhana of Mahamudra. But when he stopped teaching, that's when he became a car salesman. He had to support himself somehow. He had a son and ex-wife.
He was very good at it.
Yes.
And very, very gentle. And I never would have known that he had had any kind of nervous breakdown whatsoever. He was wonderful. And we meditated together. We went to Mother Cabrini Shrine once and meditated together. It was very powerful. It was actually, it was wonderful to be with him.
I loved him very much, from beginning to end. He was wonderful. The first time I ever really had any contact with Richard was in 1970 at Tail of the Tiger. And I just made a powerful connection myself with Trungpa Rinpoche. And I walked into the little library there, which was, this was an old woodcutter's house. It was in shambles, it was just a wreck. To call it a library is complimenting it. It was just this little room with some crummy books sitting around. And Richard was sitting there meditating. And I walked in and he looked up at me and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you." And he just flashed that beautiful smile of his and said, "Interrupt me from what?" Perfect. So here's an example of somebody who used his refuge name, a lot, almost all the time. Yes, Rain.
You can see in my tag here, Rain Kompo. Kompo is my refuge name.
Right.
That I received in 1987. But it means Diamond Mountain Peak. It's it's from the Zen tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And I received that from my teacher. As I heard someone say, it's a commitment, and you don't know that it is so when you take or receive refuge. You're not alone anymore. You're not inviting Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, but they suck you up.
Yeah.
So practice becomes easier because you're not doing it by yourself. You're carried. Anyway, my name. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
And I think we're getting a feeling right now of what it means to take refuge in Sangha.
Yeah. Dave.
On the topic of Sangha, there's a line from the reading I highlighted that I wanted to share. Trungpa Rinpoche says, "The Sangha is the community of people who have the perfect right to cut through your trips and feed you with their wisdom, as well as the perfect right to demonstrate their own neurosis and be seen through by you." And that one hit for me pretty well because, sometimes frustrated with other people, with their neuroses, and other times people will probably wake me up from my own, and that's something that I've experienced more around
Dave,
Sangha than
Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt,
else.
but you're breaking up a lot. Can you do something with your mic to make it so we can hear you better? Because we're hearing it very unclearly.
Is
We
better
want to
now?
know what you're saying.
Sure, yeah. Is this better now?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I was getting a weird error over here as well. I'm not sure where it cut out. I just wanted to, if you heard the quote, yeah, I just wanted to share that that hit for me because that's been my experience with Sangha, very, very strongly. That people will wake you up, not necessarily on purpose, but they will cut right through whatever your trip is, even when you're not asking for it.
Yeah.
I love that about Sangha as well, only I think I'm excellent at showing my neuroses to everyone and not so excellent at calling people on theirs. I've got to find my courage with that a little more.
Darling.
I feel like I've been searching for something since I was a child, and this finally makes sense. And I've been practicing since the end of November, so not very long at all. And my mentor called himself a wannabe Buddhist, and he was a Buddhist, and he recently died on September 30th, and I think it kind of pushed me. I'd been thinking about it for a long time, and I finally looked at it, and I'm just amazed at the questions that you have that are answered. Like, how do you become enlightened? There it is, So I think it's amazing. And I've already noticed a lot of changes. So I just wanted to share that.
Dave again.
Yeah. I can't remember where in the reading I caught this. There was a delineation in the ordinary or common aspect of the three jewels and the special aspect, and ordinary being what we're reading, the literal description of it, and then the special aspect of the lived experience of it. And there was another little section which I've been looking for and can't find about seeing a fly in your house and not swatting it, not reflexively going for that sort of gotcha moment. And in this auspicious way, last night, right after I had read about that, a little fungus gnat from one of my plants flitted by, and I saw it, and I had that reflex. And
what?
I let it go. In that moment,
Breaking up.
Can't hear. Shoot. I'm sorry.
We got a fungus fly.
How's this? Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot better.
Okay, great. Just saying, I had that moment of seeing the little fungus gnat go by and wanting to swat it, and instead letting it go and having that special aspect of the whole thing to kind of take form right there. Not just the read literal aspect of it, but the experienced part. It just happens. You never know when it's coming. And sometimes it's right after you learn about it.
Well, I think we're getting near the end. And I say that just to provoke anybody who has something that they want to contribute before we end.
I don't think I said how happy I am for this opportunity. I think I forgot to say that, but it's an honor, and I'm glad to have met you, and I will keep coming back here because it's amazing. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Catherine?
Yeah, I just have a question. It said in the thing that we could have witnesses or whatever next week. Can somebody join this Zoom ceremony that's not? They can? All right. And are you going to need to know who they are so you can let them in, or are you not going to worry about it for this particular?
No, definitely let us know.
Okay.
Because there were two people who tried to join this group just now, and I didn't let them in.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know their names. And because we've been Zoom bombed so much,
I never heard of that till this group. And also, are you going to be recording the ceremony as well?
Yes, we'll record the ceremony. Sure.
Excellent.
I'm not sure why. Michael, should we?
So we can share it with our people who can't be there. Maybe.
I think.
Up to you guys.
I
think we could. We can't do that with the Bodhisattva vow ceremony. That's only for the people who are taking the vow. But the refuge ceremony is more open. It's kind of like a confirmation or a bar mitzvah or something.
I've been calling it a bat mitzvah to people who ask me what that means. I said it's like really important, like a bat mitzvah. That's all I can compare it to.
Well, the bar mitzvah, you're really joining a club. This one, it's not really.
So John, should we email you if we have guests that want to join? Then give you their name.
Yeah, okay. Email me or Michael or both. We will need to know their names so that we can feel good about admitting them. Feel okay.
Also, I was just wondering when you say it's going to be recorded, is it going to be put on YouTube? Because I know some people who found me through the recordings of the class, and I don't know how public it's going to be if you record it. Is it going to be?
What do you think? Anybody, Michael or anyone else?
I mean, I don't have any issues, but I could see some people might. Although I would say that,
Yeah.
there was there is kind of the distinction between taking your own refuge personally, but then also actually taking the vows in front of the Sangha and having it as a public ceremony is meaningful. So there's that aspect too.
I don't know. I'm sort of inclined to not to publish it.
Yeah, I personally would not like to be on the internet as in any regard, much less this one.
I understand that.
Right, Rain?
Yeah, I think we should, in my view, limit the possibility to view that to the people of the Sangha. And maybe if you yourself wants to share that with someone who's not part of the Sangha, then it's your own responsibility. But like Dave said, I don't want it broadcast over YouTube. And who knows what happens then. That's my opinion.
Thank you. It's a little difficult the only medium we have right now is YouTube, and we've done that with the classes. You know, they're on YouTube so that people who miss a class can go back and listen to it. There are even people who I think just do the whole class on YouTube because they can't come at that particular hour. But this ceremony, I'm feeling maybe we should keep it private. What do you think, Michael?
I think I agree. I agree. It's different from a class.
Okay. But we can record it. And then if you have people that you want to share it with, we could make that available to you to send it out.
I like that.
You should be able to put it on YouTube, but keep it private. There's a way to post to YouTube without making it public.
I don't trust that personally.
I don't either, and I would just ask that maybe you could use Zoom has its own cloud recording function that gives you a password, and you could distribute the link with a password to Zoom.
Now that's what we do. We record it, like this one's recorded right now, but it'll just be on my computer, and I think we'll only give it out to people that you want to give it out to. I'll be giving you the links, and you can send them out to whoever you like, or the file, as it were. See, here's somebody else. These people are entering our room. Never heard of Harvey White. It's odd.
It's an odd time for people to be trying to sign in.
How do they do that? They just roam around to Zoom things and click on them? Is that like fun for people or something? That's just weird to me.
If you go to our website, you can get what you need to sign into this, including the password. But we don't let people, we try not to let people in who we don't know unless they come early, and then we can vet them, and sometimes they're bombers and we get rid of them. But I think that there's a new feature in Zoom that allows for better security, and we're going to have to look into it.
I always wish there was a way to actually meet people in the waiting room separately from but apparently that's not a feature yet.
No.
Anyway.
At this point, we can only just send a one-way message to people in the waiting room, asking them to come back and before the meeting starts so we can meet with their audio and video on. I think a lot of you have experienced that. Well, okay. I think can we close with the dedication of merit?
I just want to say one thing first. So I really appreciate everyone's participation. I was going to say if, sometimes I think with Zoom, the problem is it's easy to get into kind of a standby mode. And I'm glad that we didn't fall into that people were willing to participate. What I was going to say was if there wasn't a discussion, which there was to ask people to imagine, if you would, an inquisitive friend who is not Buddhist were to ask you what you're doing by taking refuge, how you might answer them. Because this is exactly what happened to me right before I took refuge. And it was really, and in his mind, he knew a little bit. He was not opposed necessarily, but in his mind, he said that in his thinking, Buddhism was about negation and how did you get somewhere through negation. I could answer him very well now, but at that time, all I could say is it's the right thing for me to do. I have to, it seems to me like a valid path to work on myself, and it seems like the right thing to do. And for whatever I didn't understand, that was it. And it's carried me for years. And, just wanted to share that, I guess. It was one of the best decisions in my life. So thank you, everyone.
And I just want to also say to you, I hope you find your refuge names appropriate, good, you like them. You may not. And you're looking at a person who never liked his refuge name or his bodhisattva name. Wow. But Rinpoche gave it to me, and I figure, it demonstrates both what was wrong with me and what my potential is, or was. So
I've always felt mine was something I had to grow into, and still do.
Still do. Yeah, me too.
What is your refuge name, John?
Shiva Chudzen, and you'll see it on your certificates. I sign it as the preceptor, the certificate, and it means peaceful Dharma holder. Shiva is peace, as in shamatha, she, and cha is Dharma, and Zen is holder.
I like
That's pretty.
that.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay. I mean, I had a friend whose name was Sherab Chudzen. That means Dharma holder of Prajna. Now I thought there's a name, and in fact, he went by Sherab all his life after he got that name. He's passed now too.
Well, there's your best manifestation of ego self right there, right?
There you go. Absolutely, Kevin. Okay. Any more? It's been a wonderful meeting. Thank you. Really. And thank you all for taking refuge. All right, I'm going to put the chant up, I hope. Maybe. Let's just do the dedication of merit. And I'll mute all, I think. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you in a week. Oh, but one last thing. Bring something to drink. At the end, we'll have toasts to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Now this is going to be in the morning, so
Giant vat of beer, East Coast.
I leave it to you. Whatever you want. Coffee, scotch, who knows? What are you saying, Michael?
Whatever, hot chocolate, whatever works.
Whatever works for a toast to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha at the end. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you,
Cheers.
Michael. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, so
Hi.
hi.
So tomorrow we do the Bodhisattva vow class?
Yeah, I think kind of the same thing. It was helpful to know that you did not want me to go through change of mark, attitude, and name. So
Yeah,
if there's anything,
that's called out in the ceremony. That's supposed to be done there, so that's why I wanted you to.
that's fine. No, it's fine. I think, again, I really felt, and I feel the same way with Bodhisattva vow, that really it's what people have to share that's most important. There's the questions or hesitations even, or whatever.
I thought this was just a knockout meeting.
Yeah, that was great. I really, really enjoyed listening to people.
Yeah. You did a great job presenting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be ready tomorrow. I'm not ready at all right now. I will be by the time it comes around. Interesting.
It's a bit longer chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It's doable. And
well, again, I think it's just hitting a few key points and then going from there, letting what people want to share.
It was just terrific.
Getting it.
Yeah, it was very moving.
Getting in some idea what we're getting into. Yeah, I was also a Dharma holder, by the way.
You were? What's your name?
George A. Chudson, Dharma holder, Vajra.
Wow. Vajra Dharma. Yeah.
I feel like I'm still growing into it. It was like, what in the world is that?
Indestructible Dharma holder.
Yeah. I don't feel, that's what I mean. I don't always feel that way, so I feel like I need to grow. I'm still growing into it.
Yeah. Peaceful Dharma holder. I thought that was so tame,
I see, I like that.
You do? Okay. I've never liked it all these years.
Because to me, it's a real good shamatha vipassana name, peaceful, and then the Dharma holder would be the clear seeing of vipassana.
Yeah, it's very, very shamatha vipassana. You're right. And then, should I tell you about my bodhisattva name?
Go ahead.
Well, in those days, I was very speedy.
Mm-hmm.
And speedy guy. And Trungpa Rinpoche, he talked about when he presented the Buddha families, that they represent your basic nature. He also talked about your exit. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember Marvin talking about it.
Yeah, the exit is in the style of a Buddha family. It's the way you exit from reality. So my exit was speed. It was karma, Mm-hmm. And he used to call me the road runner. He said, there's nothing inherently wrong with speed, but a road runner has blinders on, and it can see in one direction, and it goes very fast in one direction, comes to a screeching halt, changes direction, and does the same thing again. And he used to call me the road runner. He said Diana, his wife, was the queen of the road runners. So one day he was meeting with somebody who was functioning as his secretary, and he was preparing to give the first bodhisattva vows.
Uh-huh.
And he was coming up with names for all the people who he had approved to take the vow. Mm-hmm. I rushed into the room, right? Because I had something, and I interrupted, him giving names. I asked him this question, and then I rushed out. I was told later that he turned to someone else, because I was going to take the bodhisattva vow, and gave them my name, non-returner. Dakme. It's like one of the stages of the Arhat.
Yeah.
So that's my bodhisattva name.
One more, I don't know, Samtansari, Gold Mountain Meditation.
That's what yours is, Gold Mountain Meditation?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's good. Yeah.
I'm not sure what Gold Mountain is exactly. Sounds good.
Mountain is Re. Meditation, yes. Of course, probably Samten.
Yeah, Samtansari.
Sari. Sari is gold. Yeah. And Re is mountain.
Anyway. Great. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. See you tomorrow morning, same time.
Tonight we're going out. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed doing this.
Oh, thank you for doing it and doing such a great job.
Bye.
Bye.